Welcome to my fourth weekly trading recap. I'm Valgrim and I trade Ross Cameron's small cap momentum strategy. And we're going to go over each of the days of this week. We had a pretty good week, up $97.71 this week, just trading with a small $2,000 account, still trading quarter size. However, I do think that this week could have been a much bigger green week. We had some technical issues later in the week that caused us to miss some opportunities. And just in general, in the first 3 days and whatnot, we've been missing a few opportunities just because of our hesitation. Although that hesitation has been getting better as we're gaining more experience and continuing to build trust and confidence in both ourselves and the strategy. We are slowly doing better and missing less and less opportunities, but there were still many missed opportunities this week. However, it was still a good week, up $97. That's one of my bigger green weeks. And it's very promising for our progression as a beginner trader. But let's jump right into August 8th, which is Monday. I have the VOD pulled up here, and we're just going to go through it together. So when I sat down on this Monday morning, we had a couple of stocks up over 200%. We've been seeing some really good action in the market this week, and a lot of big movers during regular market hours as well. So whenever something pops up and starts moving quickly, then that's going to be the time for us to try and take advantage of the opportunities that pop up as they present themselves. So we were kind of watching UPC when we sat down in the morning on the leading gainers. Everything else was either too cheap or too expensive, so UPC was the main one to watch, but did a big false breakout in the morning there. Not very nice looking. I didn't end up jumping in on this because it had higher volume selling than buying on that pullback. So I didn't buy the breakthrough VWAP because I expected there to be a lot of sellers on it. It was a China stock with no news as well. China stocks have been working pretty well recently, but got to be a little bit wary of them still, especially when MACD is negative here. You can see the rejection happened when MACD was still negative and there was still higher volume selling than buying on the 10-second back here. See if I can maybe back up a little bit. I was looking at it right around here, and there was higher volume selling than buying on this pullback. I didn't buy the pullback, and MACD was still negative. Ends up breaking through, but we don't take trade because of those reasons. So we kind of remain patient all day. There are a few things that moved but didn't really hold up. And HYFM was our first trade of the day. Back when it first popped up here, at around 7:30, it popped from below $1 all the way up to $3. So it was instantly up 200%, 300% on the day, capturing a lot of traders' attention. But I didn't buy it right here as it was popping up because it was higher volume selling than buying there on that peak. And we were waiting for a pullback to get in. So we didn't really find a good place to enter right here. Pretty far below the highs. And I'm waiting for a pattern to present itself and to see if this actually continues holding up. The stock does some consolidation and we're not really interested in it as it's consolidating. We're waiting for it to do something out of the ordinary. And right here, I see that it's holding up. However, on the 1 minute, we're still higher volume selling than buying. So there's no entry on it for me yet. But as it's popping up here, I am looking at this pullback because it's retesting high of day and it might be forming a cup and handle in the 10-second pattern. I'm watching to see if it holds the lows there of around 260. To see if I could buy a pullback. Maybe for an ABCD on the cup and handle. So I'm watching the level 2. And as this candle is closing here, I see that we're holding. So I take a buy for 275, 100 shares, expecting the breakthrough high of day with a stop of around 260. or so. It takes some profit as it pops up through high of day there, giving us our 2R, our first profit target, which is about 30 cents. I take some more as it stalls out here. And then I'm looking at this pullback, considering an add potentially. I'm thinking that we're pretty extended on the 5-minute because we have 4 green candles in a row on the 5-minute. And the low is all the way, like the 9 EMA is all the way down at 2, which is a very high percentage for this stock. So I don't end up buying this pullback here, but I think I should have added back to this position as it holds the low of around 325, 330. You can see it kind of doing a double bottom there. We still have higher volume buying than selling, so there's a pretty high likelihood that this pops back up and tries to either retest the highs or retest the flat top. So I think that I should have added back here and then scaled out as it pops back up. So if we're watching the level 2 right there, might have been a good buy as the tape speeds up. And then you could scale out as it pops up here to 360 and fails for an extra 10 or 15 cent winner. See, it pops up to 360, 370. And then you see that big seller pop up. So that probably would be the exit indicator, seeing those big sellers pop up or up here around 360, waiting for an actual consolidation or an actual 1-minute pattern. So right there, I end up selling as it fails to hold up. Probably could have sold earlier, I think, on that, as the big seller popped up back here. I ended up losing quite a bit on that. So I think the exit indicator was the seller popping up on the level 2, which I may have missed or may not have been quick enough to get out. And yeah, I see a 10,000 share seller there. And it keeps refreshing. We keep seeing those 8,000, 10,000 share sellers pop up. That would have been an exit indicator to get out before we lose a bunch of our profits on half of our share size. End up getting out at 318 instead of 350 on 45 shares. Missed 20 bucks on that trade. Not great. The entry was good, but the exit needed to pay a little bit more attention to the level 2 for that exit indicator. So we do some consolidation here. You notice that we test this level of around 350, 345, 350 one time. And we hold up and we pop through. I think this could have been another entry potentially for the break of 350. Because this would sort of be like a curling pattern with a pivot. The pivot being that red candle in the middle with the topping tail. So as the stock continues to hold up and we break that pivot level right here, this would probably be a buy. The curling pattern as it continues to hold the pivot level. So right there it holds, and then I would buy with the stop of 340 being the low of the pullback, looking for the squeeze back up through 5-day, getting a scalp on that. The only thing I will note is that there was a higher volume selling candle on the 10-second there, which would make it a little bit awkward for me because I've been using volume profiles as confirmation. But this, there is a micro pullback in between here where it pulls back, retests that level, and then continues higher. And the stock ends up doing a bit of a cup and handle here with a double top. This also could have been another entry here from 350 up to 4 as we hold that level once again. higher volume buying than selling on the 10-second. However, it is a little bit tricky. I don't think I took this entry because of the higher volume selling candle on the 1 minute. So I think this one didn't align very much with our strategy, considering MACD is almost crossed over and we have, devil horns, double top on the 1 minute with higher volume selling. This is one that's going to be a little bit riskier and won't work as often. I don't think that there was a missed opportunity there. And it pops through and does a big rejection, does a big false break. That's okay. We did get our one easiest money trade on the day on this, which is great. But I think that there were maybe a couple of scalp trades that I could have done in between to make the green day bigger, which is one of the things I'm going to have to start doing if I want to capture as much of the opportunity as I possibly can. So far, I've just been focusing on getting the easiest money trades and not worrying too much about scalping. But it is going to be something I'll have to pay attention to in the future. NHYFM does a consolidation. I'm not interested in it while MACD is cross negative. EDBL pops up, but I'm not interested in it because it's on the backside of this move here on the daily. And I think it's just going to be out of focus, so I don't trade that. EZRA pops up briefly, but I don't take the initial pullback on it because it's higher volume selling than buying. And EZRA does do a bull flag pattern here below the highs. Maybe I should have considered this trade right here for this bull flag pattern with the higher volume buying than selling on the 1 minute, and the hold for maybe about 290 or so. It was up 66% on the day. It did have news, but I generally don't like letter of intent news because letter of intents, like, they're supposed to signal that both parties are interested in something, but it doesn't mean that it necessarily will happen, right? So I'm not entirely sure about this, and I don't end up taking an entry on it, but it goes from 3 up to 330, just a small 30 cent winner. Probably trade a bit larger share size on this since it is a bit cheaper. You can make 30 bucks on it. Like, that's not bad. I am interested in it right here though, as it's looking to potentially break this pivot. And I think that this could have been an entry for an ABCD pattern right here. But it ends up selling off. So it ends up being a loser anyway, but I do think that perhaps I should have taken an entry on this for the cup and handle. Ends up not working anyways because it does a false break. But right here would have been the buy around 320, 325 as it holds that level, and it still pops up to 340. So it would have been a winner, just not a very big winner because it ends up doing a false break. And EZRA ends up curling back up. So looking at it here again, I think right here would have been the earliest buy possible for the break through the pivot level once again. But just to be safe, since we had that false break earlier, I wait a little bit longer to see if MACD finishes crossing, because it just crosses there, positive. And right here, I'm looking at a pullback to see if it can hold the low of around 339. I do see the confirmation of higher volume buying than selling here, so look to take a position. I take a position there as it's doing this ABCD pattern. Or sorry, no, I take a position right here on this bull flag pattern. I take it a little bit early. Stop is low of the pullback as per usual. And I just give it some time to work. It ends up popping up to 380 and then doing a rejection. But we just scalp out with a little bit of profit, sell as it comes back down, break even. We scalp a little bit of profit on that. But now, this is a couple times that it's been doing false breaks, and it feels really choppy, so I don't take any more trades on it. HYFM, I did end up taking a trade on this as well, but this is where some of the technical issues that I've been having during the week started coming into play. I had a few different ones. The first one was, I think it's a problem with trade zero. I originally thought that it was a problem with my keyboard not working when I press the enter button, because I'll show it here. Right here, what I usually do, you see me filling out quantity 200 shares. I had a decent cushion on the day, so I was thinking about sizing up for this break through the pivot, which is around 345 or so. Now let's see where I buy. I'm thinking the pivot is around 345, 350. I end up buying there at 355, but I buy 400 shares and I accidentally almost bought 600 shares. You can see that on the level 2 it rejected because I didn't have enough buying power, since my account was around $2,000. So I accidentally almost filled 600 shares, but that's because I was mashing my enter key because my enter key wasn't working and I was getting frustrated. Because I meant to press it like right around 350 as it was breaking. And, I'm mashing the button and it's not working. And eventually 3 orders come through. And I think there has been something going on with Trade Zero recently where when you do a load order and you press the enter button, it doesn't send the order, which is very odd. I had, after I closed stream, I tested it in the simulator, and sometimes it sends it, sometimes it doesn't. I've never had that issue before. I've done hundreds of trades, and only now I'm having that issue with fill orders, like not auto send orders, but where you fill it in the level 2 first, and then you press the enter button to send the order. I don't know what happened there, but it really distracted me for this trade. We ended up having a 27,000 share seller popping up at 360. But this was, classic curling pattern. We have a level that the stock attempted to break through earlier, and now as we're breaking this level again, when MACD is now positive, I'm thinking that we could get a squeeze back up to high of day. So I'm looking for, the break of 340, 350, and squeeze back up to 4 potentially. So right there, I buy 355. It pops up to around 370, and I immediately scale out half because I bought way more than I intended. I don't want to be in the position with 400 shares, especially when there's big sellers popping up. So I scale out half right away, and then I leave the rest to see what happens. And immediately a bunch of selling comes through, and I have to get back out. So luckily it wasn't a very big loser. It did end up being a loser because of how many shares I bought, but I took 6 cents of profit, up 5 to 6 cents on half 200 shares, and then I ended up taking just like a 13-cent loss on 180 shares. So it didn't end up being very much. It ended up being like a $15 loss or something like that. I don't remember exactly how much it was, but it was a bit unfortunate. This would have been a small winner or break-even trade if I hadn't had those technical issues, because I could have gotten in at 350 and then scaled out half at around 365, 370, and sold the rest break even as it came back down. But, first technical issue, it is what it is. We already had a good cushion on the day on that rejection, so not a big deal. But now I'm kind of wary about my trade zero. And I say I'm not going to take any more trades for the day because I need to figure out what the problem is, right? I don't want those issues happening in any more of my trades. Right here at the open, we actually did have an opportunity, but I didn't take it. So I don't usually trade the first 3 1-minute candles of the open as a rule, but right here you can see on the 10-second we have higher volume buying than selling on easy RA as it popped up through high of day. So right here I probably could have taken a position for the hold of $4, expecting the pop back up on easy RA. And it did pop up to above 450 on a bull flag pattern at the open, which I could have taken a trade on. So there's one missed trade already due to technical issues. I probably would have taken this trade at the open if my trade zero wasn't, you know, acting funny. But we end up shutting it down. I don't take any more trades. And that was Monday. So let's move on to Tuesday. So Tuesday, we didn't have too much that I was interested in. There have been a lot of penny stocks moving this week, and I haven't really been interested in them. So we maintained discipline all day, waiting for something to pop up that we like. And then we have AMIX pop up and then curl back up through high of day. So right here was a potential trade, but it wasn't up enough on the day for me yet. AMIX was only up 20%, so I was afraid that it wasn't going to be in traders' focus. But as it pops up through high of day, I was looking at this micro pullback here because now it's starting to move, and now it's up 40% on the day up here. So right here, I'm looking for the hold of maybe like 490, and I was waiting for a bull flag pattern to form here with that second red candle. So I was hoping for it to close for me to take a position, but it ends up being strong enough to just go without me. I probably should have just taken the position as I saw it holding $5. So if I'm watching the level 2 here, as it's pulling back, I look over, I see lighter volume selling, so now I should be looking to see if it holds 5. And right there, as it wicks back through 5 with very high volume buying, I probably should have just taken the position rather than waiting for the candle close. So I end up missing that first micro pullback, which isn't great. But I'm thinking that this is strong enough and it's moving quickly enough that there's probably going to be a second micro pullback. I'm watching the second micro pullback, and I do take a position there on that doji as it holds around $6. I'm watching it pull back and got bought back up off of 6, so I bought up at 640. Got bought back up really quickly. So I ended up getting filled at 647 because of how quickly it spiked there. So I was a little bit worried that I got filled too high because now our support is all the way down at 6. So I'm looking at like above a 50-cent stop on 50 shares, which isn't great. But it ends up going there and working out since it was fairly strong. And we get a nice break of 7 there, up to 7. And I saw right away because I'm thinking that there's a lot of selling there as it pops up to 7. And this is our second micro pullback, and we're extended on the 1 minute. So I'm thinking that we need to do a 1 minute consolidation. Right here, once again, I think might have been another opportunity for a quick scalp as it holds that $6 level. Once again, we still have higher volume buying than selling. So potentially a scalp from 650 back up to 7 as it pops up and double tops. But as I said before, I'm still working on just getting good entries and not missing the front sides of the move. And then I'll start working on scalps as I continue on in my journey. So as I thought, it does a 1 minute consolidation here. But I don't see a very nice looking pattern. It ends up popping back up once, but I don't take that trade because it doesn't look very nice on the 1 minute. And right here, once again, we kind of have that curling pattern where we pop up, fail, and then we continue to hold up with a double bottom at 580. And a buy probably would have been the break of that pivot of 650 for the squeeze back up to high of day. So there are a few different things that I should be working on to capture more of the opportunities that are presented to me. One is, more of these type of curling patterns and breaks through VWAP. Two is the flat top breaks and breaks of certain levels rather than just waiting for a pullback all the time. And so, these are some things that I'm missing still that are probably going to be necessary for me to capture in the future if I want to make my green days even bigger. So I did take a position here on this pullback as it popped up and held up under high of day with higher volume buying than selling. So I took a position here thinking stop is maybe 675 as I buy there. 688, stop 675 or so. But I'm noticing as we're popping up through 7, like every time we pop up through 7, we're getting slammed back down with a burst of selling. You see it pops through 7 and then we have a burst of selling. Usually when you see that type of price action, that means that there's a hidden seller up there or a short seller being really aggressive, just shorting it every time it pops up over that psychological level of resistance of 7. And so I thought that this would fail, and I got out early on the ask as it popped back up to 690 here, and there's those sellers popping up. I got out with just a tiny loss, which is fine, but this ends up doing popping through and then doing a big jackknife, which I was worried about with that hidden seller up there. I think it was the correct decision to jump out early so that I don't get caught in that jackknife. I don't think I'd take any more trades on this day. Knew he popped up, but it was on the backside of a move on the daily. Bit cheaper. Wasn't really interested. This didn't have enough volume and it had higher volume selling on the pullback. Then it was just penny stocks moving. I think AMIX did end up popping back up through VWAP during regular market hours, if I remember correctly. But I didn't stick around for it. And this also popped through VWAP on VWAP. But it was very light volume and I just wasn't really interested. So I shut it down for the day. So Monday and Tuesday were both green days. Monday was $45.95 gross, and Tuesday was $19.26 gross. So we had a pretty good green week going so far, just Monday and Tuesday. Let's take a look at Wednesday. And we did have some technical issues on this day as well with YouTube and charts not working. So I ended up trading with Charts Watcher on this day. We set up Charts Watcher and got it working there. Well, let's just check and make sure on the previous VOD here that we didn't actually miss anything. But you can see that my trading view here is like, it's having trouble loading. And YouTube wasn't working very well, so we just started setting this up while nothing was moving, and I don't think I really missed anything. So we set up Trading View there, or Charts Watcher, and I restarted my stream. And I didn't take any trades here until YXT popped up. So YXT was our first big mover. But I missed some opportunities on this as well because I set up Charts Watcher, but I didn't realize that my volume bars were inverted when I set it up. So it pops through here and my volume bars are red. And while this pullback is forming on the 1 minute, or on the 10 second, sorry, I'm busy fixing my volume bars because I don't like taking trades if my software isn't completely set up and working. Otherwise, I would have taken this micro pullback, and it was a great micro pullback from $5 all the way up to $6. And then we have this second micro pullback up here, which I believe I do end up buying for this bull flag pattern, if I remember. Oh, no, I don't buy this. We missed the first pullback. And I was watching this to see if it would hold the low of the previous, 10-second candle back here. I do buy for first candle to make a new high, but it ends up rejecting. So I was thinking this was a bull flag pattern. It would pop through 6. And it fails there, and I just get back out with just a very tiny, tiny winner. You see it pops up there to 6 as a false break, and then I get out on the ask at 591 just for a tiny winner as it does that false break. And it pulls back a little bit more. But I probably should have bought for the flat top here, because now this is a flat top for 1, 2, 3, 4 candles up at 608. As I said before, flat tops are in my strategies, but I haven't been focusing on them. But I think right here as it pops up through 610, probably should have been a buy. So right about here, it pops through and it holds, and then we should buy there. And it pops all the way up to $7. So we end up missing 2 trades. Not great so far. One of them is because technical issues. The other one is because we had that false break earlier and I wasn't very confident about it, but I should have been thinking about the flat top pattern. This even goes all the way up to $8. So this went up nearly $2 a share, which, that's a lot of missed opportunity on just the first and the second pullbacks. And in fact, if I had bought this first pullback here, I could have potentially held for this candle, but I probably would have sold on the double top for that false break at 6. But, 50 cents a share, great on the first pullback. On this one here, buy for the flat top break, 610 goes all the way up to 8, $2 a share, also great. Stop would be, a break back down of that $6 level, that flat top. But up here, I'm looking at this micro pullback because we had a huge move. So I'm thinking that this has a very high likelihood to continue, maybe going parabolic. But it is also extended on the 5-minute as well, right? So I'm thinking that we need to do another 1-minute consolidation. However, this probably would have been a good buy for the bounce off of 750, higher volume buying than selling for the pop back up to 8 for a scalp. Once again, not really buying those scalps, which I should be to make the green days even bigger. But I'm looking at this bull flag pattern forming on the 1-minute, and I'm thinking that this is a very nice looking buy for the second 1-minute pullback, higher volume buying than selling. And I'm seeing that if we hold that previous low of around 725, and we do, I see some buying coming through. We have 15 seconds left on this 15-minute candle, or on this 1-minute candle close. So right there, as it pops back up through 750, I punch an order, anticipating first candle to make a new high. Stop is around 740. So below that psychological level of support of 750. Since I'm anticipating this to continue through, and we get a really nice squeeze there. I'd take a little bit off as we punch through at 2R, but that was even more than 2R because I end up getting 70 cents on it. Or 760 up to 820 is about, 60 cents, just over 60. And I just let this thing ride to see where we get an exit indicator. I do take some off at 10, around 960, close to 10, because 10 is a very, heavy level of psychological resistance usually. But we do end up punching up to 12. So I take off a little bit early. And then I see a huge seller pop up and I sell the rest. So that is one thing I do have to consider, is that if this does go parabolic and I continue scaling out this quickly, then I do miss some of the profits, because if I had waited just a second to see if it could break 10 and it breaks all the way up to 12 there, and I take some profit up at 11.50.12. I mean, I missed a dollar, you know, potentially $2 a share on $11. It's quite a bit of unrealized profit I'm missing out on. But at the same time, right, a lot of what I see a lot is when it reaches $10, it bounces off pretty heavily as short sellers get aggressive, and it kind of did in a certain sense here, as it popped up to 12, and then we have these short sellers popping up at 10. So I was right in a way, but in another way I wasn't. Up here, I'm thinking we're too extended. But once again, I could have got a scalp here for the bounce back up on this sort of bull flag pattern. But I've just been focusing on really, really high risk to reward entries. And we do a long consolidation. It pops through here, but MACD was still negative on the pop. I don't take the trade because I don't like taking trades when MACD is negative. They usually are choppy or they do false breaks. MACD turns positive, but we have a false break there again. I could have considered taking this trade for the breakthrough 10. Just scalped out up to 10.50. Probably got a small winner on it. Just scalping opportunities potentially. Now I do take a trade up here for the cup and handle, thinking that we're going to break through high of day. You know, I'm thinking like hold of 10.50 maybe. And we do an ABCD pattern, and I'm still like sort of hopeful that this is going to break through. Thought maybe we have to do a 1 minute pullback, so if it holds the lows, then it would be okay. Then it might bounce back up. But I end up selling there as it breaks back down through my stop. I think I set my stop to be 10.75 on this. So just a tiny loss. And I do take a trade on INLF as well. INLF pops up, it's up 90%. It was moving very quickly. And for this first pullback on the 10-second, I was thinking hold of $6 potentially on an ABCD pattern here. So I was thinking that this would be an ABCD pattern and it might spike back up to 650. But I bought at 619 and there's just too much selling and it breaks down my stop and I just get stopped out. It does a lopsided ABCD pattern down here. But I wasn't sure about this because it had pulled back pretty far. And I don't end up taking the trade. But I'm not sure whether to consider this a missed opportunity because it was a very lopsided ABCD with lots of selling. But it does end up going all the way up to 750. I'm not entirely sure about that one. But so we took a loss on that. We didn't take any more trades on that. That was our last trade for August 5th. So quite a few missed opportunities. Could have been a much bigger green day. Now, on August 6th, I wanted to give ChartsWatcher a fair shot over TradingView. And this is where I had more technical issues again. And it caused me to miss a big move on CLRO. So when I first opened it up here, I had the previous day, I had set this all up and everything was working fine. But as I open it up here, my volume bars are barcoding for whatever reason. I don't understand why. But right as I'm sitting down at 7 a.m. here, CLRO is moving. Like I miss a pullback on it right here. My volume bars are barcoding and I'm like, what's going on? And I'm not ready to deal with it because I had just sat down. So I miss a nice micro pullback on the CLRO right there. But I end up deleting my volume bars and trying to redo them there. But at the same time, there's an issue with my 10-second chart flashing. So something I did here is caused my 10-second chart to start flashing as I fix these volume bars. So right here would have been a nice second micro pullback to maybe buy off of for the hold of 870 or so, or 860. But I've fixed the volume bars and I go back to CLRO and it does a bit of a longer pullback here. We do a bull flag pattern, but you can see right there, my 10-second chart had started flashing. And I was looking at this, I was thinking for the double bounce off VWAP in this bull flag pattern, maybe an entry, but because my 10-second chart is flashing, I'm like, well, I don't want to get into a trade if things aren't working. I probably could have still taken the trade using level 2, but the 10-second chart flashing every 10 seconds is so distracting to me that I just don't even want to take an order. It's flashing there. And while this is moving and I'm trying to contemplate whether or not I should just take it anyways, even though my charts are flashing on me. It was also lagging there too, by the way. I go back here, notice and watch the level 2 compared to the charts. You see it pop up to 875 and the chart is stuck at 858. It's already up at 9. And it was stuck down there. And I saw the charts were lagging at the same time. Like it's flashing and lagging. So the flashing wasn't the only issue. And now I'm getting a little bit frustrated because I'm watching this go without me, trying to decide whether to take a trade or to just shut Charts Watcher down and then open up TradingView. And eventually I decide, you know what, I'm just gonna, like, I can't even, you know, justify taking a trade. So I shut it down, I pull up TradingView, and I get it set up. But the move is already done by the time I set stream back up for TradingView and get it all set up again. So I kind of missed the whole move on CLRO. It does curl back up here, but there's a lot of high volume selling on the 10-second. It just ends up being done. Right here, it does curl back up, but there's so many topping tails, and I'm thinking that MACD is still negative as it pops up there. See, MACD was just barely, it was -5 negative as it starts popping up. And then I looked for maybe an entry on this pullback, but it doesn't hold. No trades on CLRO because of the tech issues. So that's already quite a few missed opportunities this week because of tech issues in general. Between, you know, this day and then the previous 2 days, which is pretty unfortunate. We had a nice green week regardless, but this probably could have been one of my biggest green weeks that I've ever had. Just trading my strategy. So this ends up actually being a red day as well, -35. I take a couple of trades later in the day because I'm, you know, I'm trying to take advantage of the backsides of the moves. Even though the cleanest move of the day was already done, there were still a couple of opportunities here that popped up that I thought looked okay. Here we have higher volume buying than selling as WYHG is popping up through this pivot. of 834. So I'm thinking for the hold of 834, I could buy for maybe the squeeze back through 10 or 950. But it had pretty big range that ended up dropping down to 820 very quickly there. So I take a 50-cent loss on it, which isn't great. It, frustratingly enough, does pop up to 950 after stopping me out. But because of how choppy it was, I just didn't take any more trades on it. CLRO did curl back up. Maybe I should have considered this over 1080, but I don't think I was watching it very well. But that micro pull back down there around 11. And up here, I was looking at it for micro pullback, but it had some higher volume selling. And we were pretty far below the highs, and I was thinking that 1193 was the pivot. We kind of did have an extra pivot down here at 1080, which I should have taken into account. So I think that the micro pullback around 1080.11 probably would have been a fine entry for some of this curling action. But it ends up coming back down, and it does curl up again right here as MACD is turning positive once more. And I'm thinking now we have a clear level of a pivot around 1239. So as it pops up to 12, above 12 there and above that descending resistance level, I buy there looking to anticipate the break of 1239, and it just instantly rejects on me, and I stop out for another $10 loss. And that's where I end my trades for the day. I'm thinking like, I missed the easiest move for the day. I'm just kind of getting chopped out on the backside now. That's probably where I should end it. I don't want to trade things as they're halting around, so I just shut it down. Which is unfortunate, because I probably would have just taken, big green profits on the front side of CLRO and then called it a day, but we ended up breaking our green streak. But it is what it is. And then Friday, yesterday, we don't take any trades in this day because things are just way too choppy. We had a lot of dispersed attention between NAMI, DSY, and another stock that popped up. What was the other one? Like we had NB, NAMI, DSY, and what else? We had CELZ, a lot of penny stocks moving, and most of these were no news Chinese stocks, but a lot of dispersed attention this day, a lot of topping tails, a lot of jackknifing going on all of these as well. A lot of these had previous history of jackknifing. So I was pretty wary. I was watching MB for most of the day because it was a potential blue sky setup, for the breakthrough 20. If it could break through that pivot of 1666 and break through 20, then I was thinking that it could give us a big move, but it never ended up happening during pre-market. We did have NAMI pop through VWAP here, which would have been the only opportunity maybe for the day. That was the cleanest move for kind of this flat top or the breakthrough VWAP. And it ends up popping all the way up to 880 there. You can take a look at what the 10-second chart looked like at the time. It popped up to 780 through this pivot level of 736, and then it pulled all the way back, like almost jackknifing all the way back down to VWAP. So it does this lopsided ABCD pattern, and I'm thinking like things have just been so choppy today. There's a lot of jackknife rejections. I probably just shouldn't touch it. It ends up working, but I'm thinking that there's just, it's just topping tail city today. I think that today is not the day, and I had taken a red day the previous day trading the backside of the move. So I kind of resolved myself not to touch any of this garbage and just wait for A quality setups. Because most of this stuff was B quality, and I think it was the right decision in the end. Pretty much everybody around me was taking, red trades left and right on the choppiness. Ross had a big red day. Uh, a bunch of my friends had red days. I think it was the right decision just not to trade today, being a choppy Friday. And there wasn't really anything with fresh news that popped up that looked interesting. CELZ did move a little bit at the open here, but it was cheaper and it was right below the 200 moving average. So I don't touch it. We just end the week here. You can see me showing my P&L there. Ending the week up $97.71. If I move my mouse off there. Negative $35 red trade on Thursday, but otherwise, a few good green days. But this week definitely could have been a lot better. Instead of a $35 red day on Thursday, if I traded all of those opportunities in CLRO, it could have been one of the biggest green days of the week because it was moving so cleanly. On Wednesday, I missed a couple of good trades on the front side. One of them was because my volume bars weren't working, and then, the other one was just missed opportunity in general that I probably should have taken. Fourth, my hotkeys weren't working in the third, and I don't know. It was just it was an interesting week, one of my better weeks, and I think that we're starting to find some consistency with our trading. But I won't deny that the market has been pretty nice this week. We've been having some really clean moves. It doesn't really feel like anything's particularly clicked yet for me. It just feels like we've been getting some nice action. And I probably would have been able to capitalize on it a lot more if things were just working for me this week, but they weren't. But that's okay. Next week we'll come back and hopefully we can capitalize more on the opportunities as they're presented to us. We've been having some really good action recently, so I'm hoping that it will continue into next week. But that's going to be it for me for now. Sorry if the recap was a little bit weak today. I'm not feeling the greatest today. Didn't get very good sleep last night, but I wanted to get this video out for you guys. Hopefully it was informative, but I'll be back at it on Monday, 7 a.m. Eastern Time, as per usual. If you have any questions for me, leave them in the comments below, and I'll do the best that I can to answer them. But until then, take care, stay green. I'll see you guys next time.